Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another stream live with Roger Hanson. I'm Roger Hanson, and today I have Pegasus Dave with me. Usually Karma is coming in, but she.
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. I had no
I've
clue
been
you were
here.
there. Oh, okay. And Karma is here. She's been here so much, I'm gonna start calling her my co-host.
You funny.
But
Hi everyone.
Hello.
say hi to everybody. You want to say
Yes,
hi,
hi.
Pecos?
Hello. I'm here.
Okay. All right. Now, today I wanted to jump straight in from where we left off yesterday because of Jack Parsons, and the reason why I wanted to do Jack Parsons is because like a lot of people don't realize he was really an intriguing man. I mean, there was a lot of stuff about his life that didn't just pertain to Aleister Crowley. I mean, he was the founder of JPL, which later was affiliated with what a lot of people call the secret government. Also, they were involved in dark projects like reverse engineering and stuff like that. And I just, I just think that those are things that really people don't latch on to, you know. Um,
I'll send a picture right now.
and also, another fact that a lot of people aren't aware of is Jack Parsons' ex-wife actually married L. Ron Hubbard, who eventually established Scientology. And believe it or not,
Uh,
oh,
just
go ahead.
drawn to the occultism, weren't they?
Yeah. Um, and eventually, I know with the conversations we have, eventually Scientology is just gonna have to pop into the whole equation when it comes. I don't know which one is going to come into either conspiracy or strangeness, but you really can't avoid it. It's I think that's what scares the shit out of scientists the most. It's like when in chat we were talking about science being a religion.
Yeah.
I think what really scares a lot of people who think scientifically is they think Scientology and the way Scientology is going and stuff.
See, the
But
interesting thing about science being a religion is it's not always a religion to those who practice it. There are people who practice science that aren't religious scientists, and there are people that basically we're going to who call themselves atheists that practice science that are religious.
yeah,
So there's a line there because science is very much a method that is non-religious. But certain people cross the line with it. It's almost like the LGBT thing. There's gay people, and then there's religiously gay people. Now there's a whole difference, in science kind of lines up the same way
What do you say are the differences? Like, how would you describe the separation between the two?
between someone who practices science.
Science, how, yeah.
It has to do with faith. Um, if you practice a scientific method, you can have any belief system you want and practice the scientific method. It's a proven, tried thing. But people who say certain tests cannot have a result that disagrees, once you say there can't be a God, you're now saying you you've eliminated an outcome based on feelings and opinion and not the scientific method.
Without work, exactly.
Right. So
Without
by
decent research.
eliminating the scientific outcome and not accepting a possibility, you've declared you're not a scientist. And that's when it becomes religious.
Are all Scientologists scientists?
Scientology is completely separated from science.
Mm-hmm.
Scientology is first and foremost a religion, and it was actually a scam if you follow what L. Ron Hubbard did. The entire religion was created on a bet. It was a bar bet.
Pretty much like Dogecoin.
What's that?
but they didn't say it.
Dogecoin. Yeah.
It all starts with the bet. Then anyway, that was just fun.
Now, see,
Yeah, Hubbard bet someone that he could get a bunch of people to follow a religion if he established it, and damn it, he was right.
I heard the same thing about Jesus Christ and being able to reestablish the Roman Empire. Granted, that was through a documentary that I just recently engaged with, but I heard the same exact thing, to where Jesus Christ was actually responsible for establishing Christianity, and he was not a Christian, but he was in order to bring back dignity to the Roman Empire. How true it is or not, I still have more research to do. That was just one notation, but it makes a lot of sense in regards if you look at the timeline and the fact that one of the biggest emphasis was the part of quote unquote Jesus's life who is not where we don't know much. It was like 17-year time span that he pretty much does nothing.
The whole
And then
thing, Karma, the whole thing about like bringing back dignity to the Roman Empire. I mean, that's something that's kind of hogwash. Have you ever heard about how the Roman Empire was actually formed?
Completely formed. And like
No, I mean
may not have, but
the two brothers.
Caesar.
Cronus and Cromulus or something. I forgot. the
No,
name.
haven't heard of them.
They were two brothers, and freaking they were basically abandoned by their father. And,
Oh yeah.
And
This isn't the same story.
and basically fed to the freaking wolves. Basically, is what it comes down to. And they had to fend for themselves in the wilderness. And I mean,
Well, I don't know that I necessarily believe what I'm
but-
hearing just so
but
far.
the whole thing with with their dignity, Rome never had dignity. I mean,
Yeah, they were pretty vicious from what I've been discovering. It's not just a cliche. They really are those people that you hear about when it comes to the viciousness, and that's wild to me because allegedly that was the whole point. And they were talking about the sex parties. It's funny because like they were talking about like the sex parties
the
and
orgies
a lot of
and
the
shit.
incestuous things that were happening and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
but my whole thing is how we will not do that research. That's not even a story that we're allowed. I've never been allowed to engage in stuff like this. When I was a kid, it was you go to church, you read your Bible, and that's what it is. And that's probably
Yeah.
what started my willingness or desire to, almost a need, but I don't like to say need, but you understand, to discover more, to learn more. Because if you're telling me this is like this, I know you're hiding something else. You're telling me not to look
Yeah.
over there, but why don't you want me to look over there? Like, what's over there I'm not supposed to look at? Almost kind of like the whole eat from the tree of life type of thing. But that's the whole 360 degrees compared to the 33 degrees that the Masons stand on, even though that they represent the 360.
I just wanted to point that out about the Romans, and
They've
like,
been trapped. No, I don't mean to say it like that.
with Jesus and a lot of that, like Jesus, there's plenty of facts that go farther back than Jesus, from the resurrection and freaking.
But even they said that
things like
his practice
like
of meditation.
who was it? Horus. Horus was the one who climbed up the ladder into it was the goddess of the sky. Like
Sun god is Ra, but the goddess, when you're talking about goddess, is somebody different. That sounds like a woman. Cleopatra, no.
Egypt believed in the goddess of the sky, and the father it was Earth. It was the opposite from a lot of cultures, and that's the resurrection. Then you had Ishtar. So I mean,
But even out of the
Jesus-
biblical sense, they were attempting to kind of correlate it to where the Bible kind of just incorporated what actual facts into into bibliology.
It was a
Bibliology.
culmination. You know what
Bob
I mean?
bibliology.
A,
Yeah.
a lot of the Jewish and Christian religion it was basically incorporated into it. Like
They said that
The Book of Genesis is nothing more than Babylonian freaking garbage. I mean, that's pretty much all it is.
that's what they were saying. Okay, so hold on. Even with the resurrection, how you mentioned it, they were saying how Jesus had went and studied in India and learned meditation and self healing and being able to inflict wounds on himself
But
and
he
to
didn't
kind of
have
enter a trance. Like
to see
yes,
like right there. He didn't have to do that because they okay. Zoroastrianism is a part of, or was a part of the Persians, and the Persians historically were the ones who freaking freed the Jews from Babylon. That's historically valid. Okay, that actually happened. Um, Even in the Old Testament, they make Sargon as the it's the only time it's mentioned in the Bible as a Messiah in the Old Testament before Jesus. All right, he's the only human that was ever referred to as a Messiah, and the reason for that was because he freed the Jews from Babylon when they were in captivity, and he was what would be Iranian now, and back then in Persia they practiced Zoroastrianism. Now, Zoroastrianism is the basic phonetics for freaking all Buddhist religions. The reason why the Buddhists broke off away from Zoroastrianism was because they disagreed with the teachings of Zoroastrianism. Okay?
before I started learning through documentaries and research, like I had a direct conversation with Source and Jesus, or who you I help people see as Jesus. Like we are more connected to, like we were holding him, and even he says not as superior, but nothing that we're unable to do. This is just direct messaging, and we think that he is a superior, but because of his so the superiority that was presented was falsified, not necessarily falsified, but was created in order for him to sustain a certain type of business. I knew this before the documentary. I just never heard it said again besides through him. And I know that sounds whatever it sounds like, but it's the truth. And so then in regards to what we listening to messages being told to us because it's strategically presented to us, and we're not looking for answers anywhere else because it's enough, it's significant enough, or maybe we're just uninterested in finding any other type of answer. Okay, so with our
Okay.
abilities, we question them. They've been limited. We don't believe that we have healing powers like Jesus. We don't believe that, not all of us, some of us do, but we don't see ourselves on such a divine level.
Okay,
You
so
know what I mean? Even when I talk about it.
let me give you a breakdown on what the Britannica calls Zoroastrianism. Okay,
Uh huh.
uh, Zoroastrianism is an ancient pre-Islamic religion of Iran that survives there in isolated areas and most prosperous in India, where the descendants of Zoroastrianism, Iranian, Persian immigrants are known as Parsis or Parsis.
As
It's
Parsons, you said Parsons,
Parsis
like
or
Jack Parsons.
Parsis or Parsis.
Parsees. Okay.
Okay, the Iranian prophet and religious reformer Zoroaster Astra flourished before the 6th century BCE, more widely known outside Iran as Zoroaster. The Greek form of his name is traditionally regarded as the founder of the religion Zoroastrianism, containing or contains both monotheistic and dualist features. It's likely influenced the other major Western religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Okay, now that's what I'm basically saying. Like you can take uh, Zoroastrianism and sit it right next to the New Testament Bible, and I mean, it would blow you away how similar these two religions are. Okay, and that's kind of going back to what we were talking about with like Scientology. Okay, I mean, Scientology, they just basically did the same thing, and it's known throughout history where they've just like they've merged things into one another where they want to have one religion. You know what I'm saying? And
May you give me the basic gist of Scientology because I have my understanding of it and I like to develop more understanding based off of multiple understandings. And so how do you describe Scientology? Like if you had to define it to someone, how would you define it?
you want to say that, Pecos?
It is, in practice, it's a religion based around money and influence.
Get over for your more.
Yeah.
Can you
I,
elaborate?
I'd have
May
to
you
say
elaborate?
it really is too because I forgot her name, but she was the one who played the wife off of King of Queens, and
Yeah, I love that show.
she she had a real big issue with him. She used to be a Scientologist, and I
Yeah, I
believe
remember she came out of it and it was
she
crazy when
came
she
out
came
of
out.
it and started making some accusations, and even what's his name?
Tom
Uh,
Cruise.
No, the other one, the one that played John Travolta. John
Mm.
Travolta even had an issue with her because he's a Scientologist
Oh,
too.
yeah. See, they like to prop up their celebrities. Their celebrities are kings in their religions because they draw
Fine.
more people in.
Well, no more.
Now, on the religious side of things, it is a convoluted mess that has to do with, at one time in ancient history, a bunch of refugees from another planet arrived in spaceships that looked like DC 10 aircraft. I don't know why they said DC 10 aircraft. They look like DC 10 aircraft, and they crashed the aircraft into some evil dude crashed the aircraft into a volcano or some crap.
What?
And the refugees still exist on Earth to this day as, what's the name of the little spirits that attach themselves to you? The spirits of these people attach themselves to people, and they become a burden on their
Leeches.
spirit. Yeah, they become like spirits. And that's what they do at the mall is they hook you up to a machine to test for those spirits.
You said at the mall.
Right. You remember the Scientologists used to always have booths in the mall to get tested to see.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, they were in Arizona. They actually would encourage kids to take these classes where you go in and you start reading material and stuff. And then they would have you stand around in a circle and play ping pong with each other to see what your coordination and shit was. But they would do weird things like that. And it was
What's the
a
incentive?
series of tests that you had to go through in order to determine how smart you were and stuff like that.
Okay, so if you were attempting to convert someone to Scientology, what would be some incentive key points that would be presented in order for them to be more interested?
I couldn't tell you. I'm not a Scientologist.
Not you, but what would they use? I would like to know how did they get people in? Because if you tell me, hey, you're going to be here and spend a whole lot of money, I'm not intrigued at all. I am not in at all. So there's something that they're offering. What are they offering?
First of all, I mean, people aren't being offered anything to become Scientologists. I mean, these people are just
Because they
falling for
offer
it.
salvation and religion.
They're just falling for it. Is all they're doing. It's like, nobody comes to your house and freaking offers you money or anything like that when it comes to being a Christian. You know what I mean?
No, they offer you salvation. So
Yeah,
I'm saying,
I mean,
what is the offer?
well, the thing with Scientology is like L. Ron Hubbard was supposed to be the most intelligent man on the face of the earth. Like whenever they talk about him, like they say that he took an IQ test and they couldn't even score his IQ. So if you want to be intelligent like L. Ron Hubbard, then
You become a Scientologist.
you
Okay,
become a
okay. Now I see what you're saying.
Scientologist. You see what I
Intelligence,
mean?
infinite knowledge. Open beautiful door.
But that's basically it.
Yeah, I actually did watch the movie that was based off of one of his books that the Scientologists got together to make, and it wasn't a bad sci-fi movie. It didn't push the religion.
It's a
Apparently,
science.
what was in the movie was actually based on what's in their religion about the oppressive gods or the
What's the name of
oppressive
the movie?
aliens that act like that overrule us. And there was another alien in there that sent us a message and a recording, and it actually wasn't a bad movie. I don't remember the name of it.
Oh, okay. I'm about
But
to
as long
see
as you
this.
watch it as a sci-fi movie as it was intended, it's okay. It wasn't the greatest movie ever.
Right,
But
but yeah.
yeah,
It
you
gave
have to
some insight as to what's going on, or at least the beliefs in regards. Are there any type of movies that or documentaries that talk about Scientology? I'm
All
like
right.
on.
If you look in the chat, I posted a link to a Reddit page. And in that chat is a clip from South Park. And the clip from South Park actually goes into what the Scientologists believe. But it does it in the very South Park like manner. I mean, but when they're showing the video describing what the Scientologists believe, that is it. They were not exaggerating in the video. There's the lead in and the trailing part, but that is actually a fairly good summary of the basis of their religion from Matt Parker and Trey Stone. Or Matt Stone.
And this Elron guy is the guy who started it?
Yeah.
On a bar bet.
That part. That's a Church of Science. Oh, wow. We have one right here in Orlando. How nice. That's so great
They're
to
everywhere.
I had
Matter
no
of
clue.
fact-
Maybe I might have to go. I don't want to delete the time. Maybe they definitely.
Yeah, they're
sacrifice.
everywhere. I mean, it's like you turn around and you check it out, and you'll find out that they are everywhere. But,
Just a warning. There's a chance we'll get clam baked just for doing this video.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that could be an issue.
And blood transfusion.
The thing that I wanted to point out too was like with Jack Parsons, okay, and like everybody makes it out like he's just all about the freaking thing with Aleister Crowley and the worshiping stuff, but they seem to forget the fact that he was also the founder of JPL. I mean, and this man was a rocket scientist, okay? And JPL eventually got rid of him, supposedly, and then they said that frickin' he accidentally killed himself at a frickin' his own personal lab at home, okay?
Who said they? Hold
Jack
on.
Parsons. Jack Parsons.
Okay, but who said?
No,
Who said they killed themselves?
This is general knowledge. That's everybody says that. Okay.
Yeah, but they also said Epstein
well,
killed
let me
himself
finish
as well.
here. Let me finish here, because this is important now. That they claim that he killed himself, and we know that JP Labs has been involved in black projects. We know that they do reverse engineering. We know that they're associated with Area 51. So why wouldn't they take somebody like Jack Parsons and disappear him? Okay. So you're trying to tell me that a intelligent scientist who freaking knows how to build rockets before rockets went to the moon accidentally killed himself in his own personal freaking laboratory? Okay. That's the thing that I find mysterious about that, And I don't know. I mean, then when I mentioned his ex-wife and everything, I didn't intend to freaking run off into the whole Scientologist area, you know what I mean? Because that's exactly what I'm talking about. It takes focus off of, you know, things that people aren't really paying attention to when it comes to Jack Parsons. You know, this this man was affiliated with Aleister Crowley, but there's absolutely no evidence that Aleister Crowley was ever satanic. I hear everybody say that all the time. He was into dark magic, and there's a difference between dark magic and Satan worshiping. Okay?
What's dark magic considered to be?
Dark magic is the opposite of all the good magic that you believe in. Okay? The only thing they believe in is freaking taking shortcuts on the rituals that people who believe in white magic. It takes time and effort to freaking practice white magic. Dark magic believes that it can be achieved quickly through the use of demons and stuff like that. Okay, and that's what Aleister Crowley believed in. He wasn't a Satanist. He didn't get up there going, "Oh, holy Beelzebub." He never did that shit. You know what I mean? And the reason why I know that is because I played around with that crap when I was a teenager. I was one of those kids who wanted to learn about that stuff, so I checked it out. And I was also one of the idiots who believed that the Necronomicon was real. You know what I mean? So I started researching on that stuff before I was even an adult. And
So black magic is used to harm people. That's what the difference is.
black magic is used to get freaking effects quickly. Like, you don't have safety involved in it. You don't care if people are harmed or not.
That's like using a red candle for killing, because like I have my candles and we do candle magic, but you can use it for good or you could use it for negativity. You have
right. And the negativity would be
the black magic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just looked it up because I thought.
But see, my whole thing is like everybody focuses on all of that, but they don't understand. You know what I mean? This was a man who believed in dark magic, but then was also freaking a rocket scientist who freaking founded JPL, who's associated with Area 51, who's participated in freaking dark projects, which JPL has, I should say, not necessarily Jack Parsons, but JPL has done this stuff. They're involved in reverse engineering, and they admitted openly that they do it with the Soviet Union's technology. You know what I mean? So, you know it's happening. But that's one aspect that I noticed when it comes to Jack Parsons. There's no evidence proving that that man was ever killed or died. You know what I mean? And if you go on Netflix and you look at the video that they made for him, okay, it's kind of a joke because, like, at the end of the video, he's in his laboratory and he has a vision of a beautiful freaking, like, spirit female, and he drops a canister and it explodes. I mean, how the hell they know that shit? You know what I mean? They're just filling that crap full of banter, making him out to be an idiot. Why would they do that? You know what I mean? It just, there's certain things that don't make sense about that story, you know? So what's your guys' take on all that crap?
I'm looking for stuff on Jack Parsons now. I want something that nobody pays attention to.
Well, they don't pay attention to him, period. Like, think about how many other things you've heard about, and you barely hear the topic on Jack Parsons at all.
Yeah, no, I just started recently hearing about him and Casey. And I know that it's not the same supposedly, but it parallels, and people get cocky. So like especially, like, I don't want to say like murderers, but people that feel like they got a little bit of power about themselves, they always get sloppy somewhere. They they have to. It's like a calling card. It's like they just gotta let you know I've done some greasy stuff because it's that power surge. There's somewhere that what you're talking about makes sense, or he's here still. He's still here, but he's reincarnated. He's be dead now. No, he's not, because he's established a
He
way
would
in order for him
he
to
would be dead by
come into
now. I mean,
existence.
there's no way
But
he's
based
alive
off
today.
of
There is no way that he's alive today. But
not alive for what you used to.
well,
Again, light
we're talking
energy is
about 1935. He was
1952 is when it says he passed away. Yeah, I see
you know,
it.
I mean,
1914 he was born supposedly.
yeah,
We're
19.
basing this off of what they're
He
saying.
was at the height of his career in the 30s. You know what I'm saying? Right when rocket science was really taking hold. You know what I mean? People were actually freaking learning about it. Like he was one of the pioneers. This wasn't like some crackerjack shit. You know what I mean? You hear about people freaking who did all these great things in NASA back when the NASA was first started out, but this was before NASA was even thought of. You know what I mean? So I mean, you're talking about pioneer days when it came to freaking space exploration and rocket science.
Yeah, it's been forever since I read up on any of the early rocketry stuff, but I'm pretty sure I've read about him.
He's pretty hardcore. I mean, it really is like, and nobody even pays attention to it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like freaking everybody wants to talk about the bad side of it, like Aleister Crowley, because Aleister Crowley is exciting. You know what I mean? And like why?
Wasn't he his protege?
Yeah, he
Wasn't
was his.
Parsons yeah.
Yeah, he was his protege. If he wouldn't have died, he would have became leader of Aleister Crowley's cult. At least that's what they say. I don't know if that's true or not. Because Aleister Crowley had his ego. You know what I mean? And he ended up in the end too losing everything he had. Um, he he was one of those hardcore people, you know, that just
How has he done podcast interviews? 66 of Jack Parsons podcast interviews. How does he do podcast interviews? Podcast didn't even exist when this man was alive. That's what I
they
mean. These
they
people
take
be
old
reaching.
footage. I can listen to old footage too.
I guess it's the same how they have Napoleon, because I listen to Napoleon Hill and Earl Nightingale, and like it's just
But yeah, they they have old footages or old audio sound bits that they put together and they make it into a podcast.
have you ever done anything like a seance or channeling of the spirits or extra? All right, you said you did dark magic before. Have you channeled energy in order to become more insightful?
It's with with a lot of the stuff that I learned about. It's all about meditation, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to create a ritual where you can invoke a spirit or an entity into coming into our world and doing your bidding for you instead of you doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, First, you have to start out in deep meditation, and you have to visualize yourself in a dark room. And when you're in that dark room, you have to visualize a candle, or at least some inanimate object that you can focus on in your mind. Then after that, you envision a doorway, and inside of your conscience, when you get to this stage, you're supposed to stand up and walk through that door, and that door is supposed to be filled with a stairway, I believe, that leads up to another door. You go into that door, and it's solid white. And within that area, that's when you're able to create an environment where you can actually freaking speak to these entities. And later on, you create the ritual after you've made contact with them, and you can summons them into our reality, according to the books.
Yeah, there's other ways to do something, but I understand. I was just wondering, have you ever attempted to talk to Jack Parsons?
No,
Or
uh-uh.
okay,
No.
we
I
should do
mean,
it. We should do it.
back when I was a teenager, I didn't even know who Jack Parsons was. I only found out about Jack Parsons in the later part of my life. I mean, like this is the time of the internet and technology and information. You know, I mean, I'm talking about freaking 80s and early 90s and shit.
You should do it. We
We
should
had
do it.
bookstores.
Do
I
it.
had to steal my first book of the Necronomicon, dude, and come to find out that was just a fraud. I mean, H.P. Lovecraft was a science fiction writer, you know, and me
I'm
being
going
the
to.
idiot I was,
He would probably channel you
I
better than
believed it 100% to be true,
mine.
man. And everybody kept saying, "No, dude, that ain't real. That's
I
not
bet
real."
Elon Musk could channel him real good. I really wish I like. We got to get him on here. Like, I mean, like, and talk in real time and talk about like this because like I want to channel this guy
Well,
and I want to know if I just want to see what he's on. Jack Parsons. I mean, Elon's a no brainer. But I mean, Jack Parsons, that might take some work. I want to kind of, and I feel like that might actually be him. And I know that sounds crazy, but I think he knows that because, like, I just found out about Tesla, so I don't doubt that like that's him,
well,
that is
Dave,
him.
What do you think about my idea about Jack Parsons?
You know, I don't put anything past our government. If he was too big of a pain in the ass, especially when it came to the secret, you know, the dark projects,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they'll off him. There's no doubt about that. Uh, I don't have enough solid knowledge in my mind to really have any opinions on him. I do know, tying the religious part and the science part together, I do know post World War II, Operation Paperclip, a lot of the Apollo and earlier uh, project scientists, the top scientists, would do satanic rituals on the landing pads or on the launch pads.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the occult and NASA, there's some ties, especially historically, but unfortunately, I don't know enough about what you're talking about to really say a lot. It's I just know it's been baked into the space program, at least in its older iterations. I didn't see any direct evidence of that while I was there, but no, that was after all the paperclip guys were gone. So I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, on Jack Parsons too, it might not have been them offing him off either. It's just a fact that maybe they didn't want him to be in the public eye anymore because they found out that he was affiliated with Aleister Crowley. You know what I mean? Or maybe even they all were a part of Aleister Crowley's little hangout. You know, and he just had to go. You know, under the freaking curtain, basically. You know, instead of killing him off, make it to where freaking he just everybody thought he was dead. You know, he could have been living and doing his work in secrecy, and nobody would know. I mean, he was supposed to have died in his home. You know.
Or he didn't get killed and he just continued his work. He didn't get killed, more like he just separated itself from your existence in order for him to work freely. I can relate to that. That makes
Uh,
so much sense.
Now,
I want to
I
find
do have a general
Elon.
question,
Oh my
just to be
god.
skeptical. There's all these stories of
Yes,
fiction
I do.
about people faking their own deaths and continuing on their life somewhere else.
yeah.
And I've seen stories of basically nobody's pulling it off, usually criminals pulling it off for a long time and eventually getting caught. But how many times have we actually seen where a celebrity level individual faked their own death?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't recall
If
anyone.
you're doing it right, then you did it. Listen, hold on.
You
If
know,
you
they
do
did
it right, then we should be zero.
Well, if they did it right, we'd never
Eh,
know.
Exactly. If we know about it, then get messed up somewhere
But
along the line.
the big thing too is like when you get into that topic, Dave, have you ever like found out or checked out how many scientists who have died mysteriously since
I
World
know
War II?
people who have unpopular opinions or go against the opinion being pushed sometimes go away. I don't know about doctors, I mean, scientists so much recently, but a lot of natural doctors died in waves before the COVID-19 thing hit, and some afterwards. They were actually trying to do, real medicine. So I know
And
about.
then what happened? They disappeared.
No, they died.
No, they just died.
Yeah, there was like 10 doctors in a 2-week period, something like that, that
Mm-mm.
died because they were natural doctors.
Hmm.
I was actually
I've
worried
been
that
hearing
one of the
people with
doctors
COVID.
I used might go because she was a pharmacologist who became a doctor later and makes her own medicine and didn't believe any of the bullshit. I'm surprised she survived. She's still practicing. But I know about doctors getting offed. It happens to scientists too. We're getting into the area of things that I don't know for certain, how I talked about my levels. But apparently, the Smithsonian's there to cover up history more than it is to reveal it. And, if you find an out of place artifact, the Smithsonian's likely to show up to make it go away.
Yeah.
I could see them
Why do you feel as though that is? What do you feel as though if
Well,
someone was doing something like that or a group
that
was?
would have to be that would actually have to do with government. I mean, there's something there going on, and it doesn't really matter.
With our government?
Yeah, with with all governments, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and like everybody knows that with knowledge is power, okay. That's a basic understanding that everybody knows, and like if we are taught to believe anything, all right, and all of a sudden, freaking, they come up with something that is just so outrageously off the grid and not a part of what we were being taught, then that's gonna cause a chink in the freaking in the chain. You know what I mean? So finding giants out in the desert, hidden in caves with red hair, in the middle of freaking the Southwest that
I
are.
believe it was Kentucky, wasn't it? Or was that Oklahoma?
Wait, I think that was Kentucky.
Yeah,
But we have aliens. You think it's so far fetched to believe
Well,
stuff like this now,
that's
even with the aliens?
that's the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Giants with red hair in Kentucky. You know what I mean? Freaking that.
the local Indians smoked them out, if I'm not mistaken. They sealed the door and filled it with smoke to kill them.
Okay, 10 leading scientists who died of suspicious circumstances. Since the start of the 21st century, some have noted that many leading scientists suddenly began to drop like flies. Some were murdered, while others appeared to have died in tragic accidents. While most people found the explanation for these scientists' deaths perfectly acceptable, some began to investigate further, and the conspiracy theory that they were being eliminated was born. Many of the scientists were found to have had secret ties to the intelligence community, and it was argued that they were being targeted intentionally. Here are 10 such people. Dr. Rodney Marks, Australian astrophysicist Dr. Rodney Marks died from acute methanol poisoning. Wasn't What isn't known, however, is how he was poisoned. Suicide was officially ruled out during the investigation that followed. As more time passed, it's likely that his death will remain a mystery. Marks, who was employed by the Smithsonian Society, was a part of a research project in Antarctica for the National Science Foundation at the time of his death on May 12, 2000. He had suddenly become unwell the previous day, even vomiting blood as his condition worsened. Accidentally, investigators have cited their frustration with the National Science Foundation, noting a distinct lack of cooperation from the group, which made the investigation difficult. Coroner Richard McElrea stated that he was not entirely satisfied that all relevant information and reports had been made available to New Zealand police. And that was one of them. I figured when you guys were talking about the Smithsonian, that would be a good example.
Yeah,
Now,
I really just raised my eyebrow when you said that he worked for them. So that's quite.
And see, what kind of research are they doing? The Smithsonian isn't just about government. I mean, the Smithsonian actually goes out and does scientific investigations and stuff too. You know what I mean? So you 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 kind of have a they go in a lot of different directions.
now, something I do want to inject into the conversation based on what was said earlier about governments worldwide covering everything up. A little more than a decade ago, India pledged to stop covering up UFOs and to start making all of their news, what would be news items that would quickly get covered up elsewhere. They've pledged to make theirs public. And I have seen them do it a little bit in some of their news sites. Unfortunately, when you try to read through Indian news sites, you get so much crap anyway. It's very hard to go through Indian news and find things because they
Yeah,
tend, I mean, their newspapers are like their movies. So,
they're horrible.
yeah.
Like
Well,
some of the stuff
their newspapers are like their
some of the
movies.
stuff they put on there is just crazy because like they start talking about these Muslims that kidnap their women and shit. You know what I mean? It's like freaking. I'm like, are you serious? You're gonna just openly post that shit on your freaking news or newspapers and stuff? You know, that stuff is basically shut down in most other countries. I mean, because it's like it's a growing thing that everybody does. You know what I mean? These horrible Muslims are stealing our freaking Christian women and forcing them into the worshiping Allah and shit. You know, and India still does it. They're like, because most of them are like Buddhist or freaking Hindu. You know, and oh God forbid, freaking those horrible Muslims moved into our area, which they've been there for the longest time, you know.
But
But
Allah is just God. Allah is God. Allah is just another way of saying God. See, that's what I mean by religions separate. Because, and then
well,
there's talking about,
they've been in India since freaking well, let me stop and think. Since the Asian invasion, or, since freaking or no, since the Arab invasion. I
yeah, I was
mean,
about to say, just talking
they
about.
went from freaking Saudi Arabia straight up through Iran. They made it all the way to freaking the halfway mark into India, and they couldn't go any further. But Muslims have been there forever. I mean, just as long as, well, not just as long as the Buddhists and the Hindu, but now all you ever see when you check that stuff out is, you know, stuff like that. And that was just an
Mhm.
example. There's other crazy shit they post.
But see, is that not propaganda? It's almost like pushing Christianity.
Well,
excuse me, in a certain area of life. Like it's
not just Christianity. It's not just Christians doing it. It's, you know,
no, that's what I was saying. Muslims,
Hindus and Muslim,
Christians.
Buddhists. You wanna you wanna piss a freaking who is it, a Hindu off? You freaking eat a cow. Okay, you go out there and freaking butcher their cow and eat their cow for freaking dinner, and you watch what happens. They'll straight up kill you. I mean,
Hmm.
Oh, to be fair, if you butchered a Texan's cow right in front of them and tried to eat it, a cowboy probably
yeah.
They don't play on church in Texas.
maybe for a slightly different reason, but
Yeah. You're gonna have the same results that way.
But it's, I mean, the the kind of stuff that you listen to, it just comes back to having discernment. You just have to really be aware of what's going on. You know.
What would be the point of a government attempting to fuel us with a certain type of belief? Like, why would you? What would be their motive? Would you, if you, it just regular convo, like not saying anything is definite this, but if you could guess, what would you feel as though that would be the agenda?
okay, this is a good question. All right, you saw probably in some of the discussion earlier today where strong socialist regimes want to get rid of any type of religious influence because they want to replace religion with the state. If you run into a serious socialist, or what we in the United States call liberals, but it's not the proper definition of liberals. Proper definition, I'm probably a liberal. That's not the definition we use. But if you find the ones that are pro state everything, they're going to believe everything the government says, they have replaced religion with government. And the government wants that. Anything that might, okay, layer one might move people towards non government religions, they don't want getting out. Second, on another layer, not everyone in the government is part of the globalist plan as we talk about it. We've talked about globalism a little bit, the one world government plan. Not everyone's on that boat, but they would still want to block certain things because, okay, especially in history, at one time the U.S. was a majority Christian nation. You could just assume the average person walking down the street was probably some form of Christian. Well, people who are very, very strict in certain interpretations aren't going to believe anything. If you start introducing aliens into the mix, all of a sudden that draws up too many religious questions, and you have to worry about upsetting the nation you want to keep running smoothly because all of a sudden they start thinking about aliens and it becomes
I thought there was a separation between church and state, though.
yeah, right.
Like, but do you see what I'm saying? Because, like, go ahead, keep going, please. Thank you.
But yeah, they were worried about, you don't want to upset the nation, you want to keep the gears turning. And you don't want anything that'll throw a cog, you don't want to throw a sabot into the gears.
I think America's trying to back out of a bad deal without paying the piper. I really feel like they're attempting to slide on these people that got them under a strong arm, and their only way to do it is to separate from the powers that they consistently use, i.e., their money, i.e., their religion, and that's what's really going on. Because I'm not.
Well,
Could be. I don't know.
let me kind of add in on that too, because like Dave has a point in what he's saying there, okay? And I can use a perfect example, okay? And I was mentioning reverse engineering, all right? Well, let's bring up Area 57, all right? We know that something's going on in there. Now, all of a sudden, freaking, we have these ufologists who believe that Area 57 is reverse engineering UFOs. Now, that could be true, but what if it isn't? You see, nobody wants to flip the script and say, okay, what if something else is taking place that they don't want me, you, and Dave to know about? So they go out to these ufologists and they endorse it. They say, yeah, put that stuff out, man. We're going to throw some money your way too. And of course, it's not going to come directly from them. It's going to come from a third party. Okay. And the reason why they're doing that is because they would rather you look at the alien conspiracy rather than what's really taking place in Area 51. Okay. You see, there could be things going on there that concerns genetics. They could be doing genetic research on freaking human beings. They could be doing well, hell, that's about as bad as you can get at genetic research. You know, chemical
But they
warfare.
are. I mean, that's what they have.
Chemical warfare that's been illegal since World War One. They could be still doing chemical warfare. You know, experimenting and freaking all that. You have no clue.
Now, there's been quite a bit done in all the topics you covered there. Genetic. When I was a kid, there was a magazine I used to read. It was a science magazine dedicated to kids. There was a TV show too. I thought the TV show sucked, but I loved the magazine. 321 Contact. And in that magazine, before all this stuff, everything that's a hot topic today was a hot topic. This magazine covered it, and it made it sound good, and they addressed it in an informative way. And yeah, we've been doing genetic splicing. I think I was reading this magazine in the late 80s and the early 90s, and it was talking about the GMO crops, about goats producing genetically engineering goats to make spider webs so that you can make armor, and the Chinese have been doing that for a long time because they copied our tech on it. No, this magazine covered everything that's a conspiracy topic today, just out in the open, in a kids magazine in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing about truly one of the most horrific things they're doing behind closed doors now is genetic splicing. It includes human DNA. Because once they mix some DNA in there that's not human and they produce something, it could be 99% human. It's like, oh, we've got something spliced in that's not a human. They don't have rights. And they can produce what's basically humans. Create slaves. They can create, body slaves. They can produce real slaves.
Military.
They can produce anything they want, and it has no more legal standing than a lab rat. And that is some of the stuff they have done behind closed doors.
Yep. Now, like Avatar, okay? Have you ever watched the movie Avatar?
Yes.
Excellent movie, yes.
Okay, now Avatar really hits onto that because, and like you were talking about genetic splicing, it's known that in cancer patients that whenever they freaking want to replace a gene, they can freaking do genetic splicing, and they can introduce freaking the gene of a rat into the gene of a human and place that into the human body, which is actually used, and it's beneficial for fighting off cancer. And the rat's cell actually can work with this genetic splicing, and they've been doing that. They've been openly doing it, and they say that it's beneficial, it's good. Nobody really overlooks that, you know what I mean? But nobody takes it into consideration that there was research behind that shit. You know what I mean? They just didn't come up with the idea. There was years and years of research that went into that before they could make it.
Right. So imagine how many mess ups they had How many people just had to kind of, oh well, we couldn't save you. I
It
know
just
that's what that
it
person
didn't
don't understand.
spawn up out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And then you take a real close look at Avatar and what it's saying right there. Okay, you go into a freaking pod, you lay down, and your body is your mind is separated from your body completely and put into an avatar. Okay, on an alien planet. Okay, and that right there is what gets me. I mean that right there is right there in your face.
But you don't have to do that.
Well,
But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, no, 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 because we are. Yeah, okay.
it's becoming
Yeah,
acceptable. You know what I mean?
I mean
And
that's what
never
we're
forget
doing
the Bruce
now.
Willis version that came before it.
Decepticons. I call them
I can't remember the
Decepticons.
name of that movie right now, but it was basically the same idea with androids.
Yeah, yeah. And this stuff
Yeah,
is
I
just
call them
being
Decepticons.
it's just being put out to the public to where freaking all of this stuff is either criticized or it's being freaking just socially acceptable. And see, I thought 321 Contact was also a PBS TV show back when I was a kid.
Yeah, I knew the TV show was there. I watched it once or twice, and I thought it was stupid.
It was annoying. I
But
hated it.
the magazine itself was actually, they put a lot of work into that magazine, and it was shilling for future globalist programs, is what it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see it
It,
in a
it,
lot of the old cartoons that we used to watch too.
oh, yeah.
You know, like what was it? Star. It was the one where they had to travel into space, and they had a ship that looked like a spaceship, um, Star something, but it was before Robotech and all that stuff, and they were just straight out freaking, uh, on one side they'll talk about how horrible the devastation of Earth is, but then they'll also freaking endorse nuclear freaking power and using freaking nuclear bombs and stuff like that so that they can go out into space and explore and stuff. So you could see where nuclear power was being pushed back then. And back when the 70s was around, you take a look at people back then going out and protesting because they're putting nuclear reactors up around their neighborhoods so that they could have power. And now you look at it today, everybody's all cool with it. It's the safest form of energy. Like this, like flying, it's the safest form of travel. And it's just basically they literally brainwashed everybody into believing that it's true. There's other forms of transportation other than airplanes that are just as safe, if not safer. Um, just like friggin' there's other forms of energy that can be used that's 100% safer. But they just want you to think that it's okay to put a freaking power plant up in the middle of the Ukrainian freaking war so that Russia can freaking sit there and shoot missiles at it. But that's not a conspiracy. It's just, you know, they already had one accident over there, which the city itself that it happened in can't even be lived in now. But
Yeah,
hey,
Chernobyl.
yeah,
Yeah, that's actually
Chernobyl.
in Ukraine, but it was part of the Soviet Union when it happened. So.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm talking about. Now this new nuclear power plant is just down the road from it. It's like maybe freaking a 6 hour drive, and a lot of people don't realize that shit. You know, they're 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 okay with it because scientists can go out there with their freaking their testing and they can freaking test how the freaking animals reacted to it and shit like that. So they keep quiet. You know what I mean?
I actually saw a news article last week about why Germany has so many radioactive bores, and it led back to Chernobyl. I didn't read the whole article, but apparently the radiation gets into Germany through animals. That's a pretty long walk.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, Have you heard Elon Musk's bullshit when it comes to radiation too? And I've noticed a couple people online are jumping onto the bandwagon about that nuclear power shit. Like he's saying, well, you know, we we're going to have to freaking stop this whole thing about radiation and everything because the truth is when we travel to Mars, our astronauts are going to have to put up with high levels of radiation in the first place, which is true. Okay, but I think he's kind of going off scope there, trying to freaking push the power issue. You know what I mean?
I'm actually pro nuclear power, but not necessarily in the old way. If you read up on pebble bed reactors, that sort of thing, I'm all for a pebble bed reactor, something that's less dangerous. And I'm not fully against the old fashioned way. The problem with the old fashioned way, it's a combination of too much regulation and not enough correction. You know, there's so many safety rules in so many instances have gotten so strict and so in depth, you've actually had the opposite effect. When you get too stringent and nitpick a safety rule, a safety to death, you eventually hit a point where people start ignoring problems because they don't want to have to deal with the safety involved.
Yeah.
Or things start getting overlooked and things don't get addressed because of the bullshit red tape around it. I saw this all the time when I was on a government job. You know, you would have people things that would just fester for years because no one wants to do the paperwork. And I think that's part of the problem we've had with nuclear power. There's certain places where they need to relax, and there's certain places where they need to buckle down, and they didn't necessarily choose the right options.
See,
By the way, Bruce Willis movie was Surrogates. Avatar before Avatar came out.
yeah. Yeah.
God, are you preaching or are you preaching? I'm just sitting here listening.
Well, see,
Okay.
the thing about that is it's all fine and dandy here in the United States, but on a world scale, I mean,
And how do you fix the world? And does anyone
you
care about
can't.
fixing the world?
I
Oh,
mean,
don't say you can't. That's
like
negativity. I don't like it.
You got these regulations in the United States, but those same regulations aren't going to freaking help when it comes to China. It's not going to help when it comes to freaking Pakistan, who smuggled their freaking nuclear technology in through freaking Azerbaijan.
There has to
from
be a common incentive, and
from
it has to not be
Turkey.
money. Power.
Yeah, and smuggling. I mean, that was just so wrong. They totally cut the Clintons out of the equation and didn't bribe the technology out of them like a civilized country should.
Yeah. See, now we're getting into the good shit. That's conspiracy right there. See, that's.
But is it?
Now remember when we first started this, I said conspiracy versus conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go.
Okay,
You're
that's
right.
conspiracy to
conspiracy,
commit a
not
crime that was completely overlooked. So what did they do? They used conspiracy theories to freaking
Cover
keep
that.
people away from thinking about that. You know, because if you even mention the word freaking Hillary Clinton, all of a sudden you're a freaking conspiracy theory kook
Yeah.
who freaking
Mhm.
is uneducated and knows nothing about science. All right?
I mean, look at us. We're getting clam
Obama,
baked and
all of that.
Clinton in the same episode.
Yeah.
Double different.
And they want to separate the two like there's a difference between a conspiracy and a conspiracy theory. No, there isn't. It's basically the same shit. You know, these people who are making these claims that are conspiracy theories are talking about people who are committing are are in the
But a
process
theory
of
discredits it. And that's why they slap theory on it. Because a theory is something that cannot technically be proven, although it can be possibly real. And so that's the issue. When you slap, hey, they kind of think that this is real, but it's
All
just
right.
just a thought
Go look at
theory.
Wikipedia's definition of conspiracy. You know, I mean,
I'm doing it right.
that's why I don't freaking use Wikipedia is because Wikipedia is the
Well, regular people, I can go post Wik- Wikipedia. Like I can, well, and I mean, I'm not saying I'm a discreditable source. I'm just saying like there are a lot of discreditable sources that know for a fact that because they have that access, why not? Why
the
not lead mislead people? Okay, you said Wikipedia. Here we go. Of conspiracy or conspiracy theories.
either
I
one.
see conspiracy.
Look
I
at them
got
side by
conspiracy.
side if you want,
Yeah.
because it's really interesting how they place that out there. You know what I mean? It's like, and you can see it
With
when
political motivation. You see what I'm saying?
yeah
I
yeah
actually donated to Wikipedia a couple of times, 13, 14 years ago.
hmm
And because of their protected bullshit information that got put out on some articles, there were some that I found flaws in that I fixed. They kept putting the flaws back in.
yeah
And once they described anything negative politically as right wing and anything good politically as left wing without any foundation or reference, oh yeah, Nazism is a right wing thing. Yeah, socialism is right wing. It's like, no, socialism is pretty much the definition of left wing. But
yeah.
then they started changing the definitions of socialism, and
Well,
I
the
had to quit. I never gave them another dime after one in particular. It
the
was a
the
biology article.
the issue I have about like freaking them saying Nazism is right wing is it's not. It's left wing. I mean, all of it is freaking left wing. So,
Yeah.
Nazi is an acronym for freaking the Germans' work party. Okay.
National Socialist.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's
they
say
and
it.
they turn around and they say freaking
Right.
Nazis were fascists. Well, how do you think fascism came along? They used to freaking manipulate monopolies. You know what I mean? Socialist programs are manipulated and monopolies were created. You know, and it's 100% freaking socialist. And everybody keeps arguing with me on that concept, and it's not hard to freaking understand. Like, Nazis don't hate freaking socialists. They
Oh, see?
don't. No, Nazis love socialism. Socialism is what freaking made them who they are today.
Well,
Okay.
most people don't realize about World War II, Germany and Russia hating each other. It what they and one of it was the communist and the socialist hating each other, even though it's basically the same philosophy. It was all about who their hero was. It wasn't because they disagreed. It was infighting for the most part when
Mm-hmm.
it came to the base concepts. They were having a giant infight because communism and socialism are so closely related, and it had to do with implementation and who made the decisions.
It's
Yeah, our
it's crazy.
biggest war ever was a communist infight when it gets down to it.
The the Mussolini, okay, is the one who first first came up with the whole concept of socialism and made it into what it became. And Hitler um, jumped on the social or the freaking the fascist bandwagon. But at the same time, before he became into power, he knew that he needed to go in and he needed to freaking manipulate these socialist groups. There was one that was out. I forgot the name of it. It's like the Vol or something like that, and they believed in freaking blood and soil. Okay, and they were very much into like what Greenpeace would be into today, and the Volve, because that's how the name Volvo came to being. It was because of that group, and they were big in politics back then, you know, and Hitler and the Nazis took advantage of that stuff, and there's a whole bunch of freaking socialist groups that were involved with Nazis back in those days, and they just became a part of the freaking
Volvo the car.
yeah, Volvo the car. I forgot the name of
Can you spell?
V.
So it's spelled Volvo.
Volvo is VA.
The
VO.
VO. The car is VO.
I have Volvo, but is that the same way you spell this group? I'm gonna tell. How will I search this without pulling up a card?
I believe I can find it. It's Volvo or something like that.
Volvo fascist.
The Vol or something like that. VUAL or. But anyhow,
There the years of
the it keeps wanting to.
It's all good. I just
I'll find it at some other time and mention it. But
yeah.
They did this with all these socialist groups, and then after they did that, that's when they started freaking learning how or implementing monopolies like Krupp. Have you guys ever heard of Krupp?
The rapper?
No, his name was Krupp. He was a freaking industrialist back then who had factories that built the German missiles and stuff, the bombs that they dropped, okay? And what he did was he ended up creating a monopoly with freaking Nazis to where he manufactured the weapons and everything. And the Germans used the Jews as freaking slave labor. So they would be in there building these bombs and freaking doing all the labor for him while he was making a profit with Germany by building these weapons. And that's basically the function of fascism. Okay.
Now, I'm going to go off on a tangent here because we've been talking about World War II vehicle manufacturing, or manufacturing during World War II in Germany.
Uh-huh.
Ford was actually had factories in Germany in World War II making vehicles for the Axis powers, while the Ford factories in the U.S. were making Ford vehicles for the Allied powers. And when we sent our Army Air Force over to do a bombing run, they always had express orders to not bomb certain factories because they were Ford and they belonged to us.
Mm-hmm. Well,
most people have no idea about that.
You've heard about IBM, haven't you?
Oh yeah, definitely IBM. That's what the tattoos were all about.
Uh-huh. And IBM even made the freaking time clocks and for the Jews whenever they had to freaking clock in and clock out when they went out to do their work. They actually were the ones that gave the Germans those freaking time clocks. So every time you see a movie where freaking they're going up and they're getting their time cards before they leave the camps, they're freaking getting those time cards and clocking in and clocking out because of IBM. But nobody knows that. They don't want to hear that. Just like they don't want to hear that DuPont was going to freaking do a coup against the American government because we entered the war. The DuPont family.
Right.
So, but all that's fact. But it's a conspiracy.
I actually didn't know the DuPont one.
Yeah.
They problem with me, I graze everything, but I don't deep dive into everything.
DuPonts, they actually supported the Nazis and what they wanted. And whenever we went to war against Germany and Japan, they were actually in the process of freaking performing a coup. And because it would affect our economy because the DuPonts had a lot of money back then. They decided to let them off. They got away scot free and never had to pay for their consequences, just like Krupp in
Right.
Germany after World War II. All these people that got freaking sentenced with war crimes were killed, but they let Krupp go because he had so much money that it would affect the economy. So they let it slide. See, this is the kind of stuff they don't want you to know. Like, not everybody who were war criminals were actually freaking brought up on war crimes. That's just a complete fiction.
I know a lot of prominent businessmen were pro-Nazi in the beginning. Henry Ford being one of them. I'm not mistaken. Wasn't Walt Disney kind of pro-Nazi?
No,
Anyway,
I never knew about that. I know that he was he was weird. That's
yeah,
basically it. He was really weird. That's about
he
it.
was obviously anti-Nazi later because Disney did produce a lot of propaganda, anti-Nazi cartoons later. But I think early on he was pro-Hitler, and I know Henry Ford was. And there was a pretty long list of people that were, but didn't he make Times Person Man of the Year twice before the war?
Yeah.
And
Walt Disney.
yeah, there was like
No,
Hitler
Hitler.
mania over here in the U.S.
Hitler.
before the war started.
Hitler actually made Man of the Year for Times Magazine twice. I know that. That's the crazy part. And like when it comes to eugenics, that that's here in the United States. We were the leaders in eugenics. Okay. Adolf Hitler actually admired America for their eugenics programs, and when it
Didn't he write FDR or was it FDR? He wrote a fan letter at one point to one of our presidents.
yeah, and they they endorsed this stuff. The United States did. We're the ones who came up with freaking the abortion thing. But like, see, there's voluntary eugenics and then there's involuntary eugenics, and Hitler was a part of the involuntary groups, but he understood the concept of the voluntary groups, like abortion. You know what I mean? Abortion was created because of a racist white woman who freaking thought that it would be a good idea to freaking use abortion to kill off freaking uneducated black babies. But you're not going to hear that. This is Planned Parenthood, okay? This is important today, you know. But that's left wing and Hitler is right wing, you know what I mean? So they don't connect. And a lot of people don't even want to hear that. They don't want to understand that the person who freaking founded Planned Parenthood was a racist white woman who freaking thought it would be smart to freaking kill off freaking uneducated black children and use
Now, let's follow what happened with Planned Parenthood after Margaret Sanger moved on.
Mm-hmm.
Who led it up later?
Now,
Well, that would be William Gates Sr.
oh shit!
Bill Gates' daddy headed that stuff up.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, his father was head over Planned Parenthood for a long time.
Are you kidding me right
And
now?
I have seen some actual, transcripts from what amounted to basically 4chan trolls. But they got into the chats with Planned Parenthood and asked if they could give donations specifically to, and they actually didn't say it like, they didn't put it nice. They actually said, can I donate money to abort jigaboo babies or something like that.
Yeah.
And they said, so And Planned Parenthood being professional and political and all said, so you would like to make a donation specifically to go to a woman of color? And yeah, they
That's
the
what I
board
was
stand
here
went in
for.
trolling, and Planned Parenthood said, "Yep, give it to us." And they Planned Parenthood said it all nice, but
Yeah, no, definitely. I
Yeah.
actually wait. I'm gonna
Now see,
until 2020. Are you kidding me?
I didn't know that. I kind of went off on the left side there where I got this. Oh, not on the left side, but I kind of went off onto the side and got distracted with that. I should have followed up on it, and I didn't. But where I kind of jumped from her was to the fact that I found out that after they do these freaking abortions, they take the fetus and they actually do scientific research with it into genetics and everything. So these baby fetuses that they're freaking aborting are being used for genetic research. Okay, and that is what blew me out of the water. I mean, so they're
oh,
actually making
they
money
sell
off of it.
them. Sometimes they get them still alive and sell them to colleges and what have you.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, that's how Project Veritas first got their real big start. And by the way, there's been a coup at Project Veritas since then. Project Veritas was doing so much damage to the deep state. They basically did everything they could to blackmail and compromise everyone else in the organization to get rid of James O'Keefe. And then they started dismantling the organization after he was gone and tried to sue James O'Keefe whenever he tried to start basically going undercover and doing the same thing all over again without him. But yeah, that's what started Project Veritas was exposing just how much money was tied up in Planned Parenthood
Hmm.
and
Well,
the selling of the parts.
you heard about the founder of Greenpeace, right?
Oh yeah, he. I mean, no. Let me make sure I'm thinking of the right person here. He's the one who's going around talking against them now, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what happened was is he was discommunicated or whatever they call that from Greenpeace because he got upset with Greenpeace when at first when they first started out it was always about freaking going out and saving the whales. You know what I mean? There were ships freaking full of people sitting in front of boats that were fishing for whales, stuff like that. You know, actually doing uh, activist stuff to save animals. So it went from that to the point where everything became environmental climate and lawyers and freaking politics. They Greenpeace spends more money now on lawyers and freaking sending money off to freaking politicians than they do in anything else. All right, and he became frustrated about it. He ended up freaking walking away from Greenpeace, and they completely disavowed him, and he's no longer considered even even though they can't technically say he's not the founder, they're saying that they just don't even want to acknowledge him as being the founder of Greenpeace over that.
And what really happened with Greenpeace, as far as I know, they started out like you said, save the whales. And what happened, and I think there's more than one organization, is that I know the Saudis came in and basically started funding them to protest oil. And but they were protesting oil on everything except for Saudi, where it came to the Middle East. They were trying to stop us from drilling our own, is what it boiled down to.
Mm-hmm.
So it became a semi money laundering organization. It became a protest organization for hire. And yes, once you start getting into the dirty money into things, you do tend to fall in with the globalist. And yeah, once they start paying them to disseminate climate change garbage, yeah, it's just a major sellout organization.
Yeah. Well, ExxonMobil is funding a lot of these environmental environmental science, environmental climate groups, I should say, so that they can go against the companies, which is their greatest competitors as well. So they know that if they take, not just Exxon, a lot of the oil companies are catching on to it too, and they're sending this money off to these environmental climate groups so that they'll protest against coal, which is their competitor. And without coal getting support, they get more money out of the part of it, you know what I mean? And then they can turn around and they can invest into making batteries and, you know, thinning their oil out to where it's freaking less harmful to the environment. Stuff like that, you know what I mean? So they're on their last freaking grasp, and they know they are, but they can still make money off of them. So
Now, I'm going to tell you, I have done work for ExxonMobil, and that was a completely different experience. About once a week, they would have a site-wide meeting, and they'd call everyone to the big, I think it was the cafeteria, but it was set up, like a big gym-style address conference, and they would call on people to give their personal opinions on matters. And your personal opinion had better line up with what they wanted.
yeah.
There was all kinds of cloak and dagger. It was like 1984. People reporting on each other behind the scenes, and it was very much, you had to worry about everyone down around you trying to take you down and report you. It was a 1940 AD4 scare fiasco working for them. You know what? When they got rid of me, okay, I'll tell you why they got rid of me too, and this is really screwed up, but I'll tell you in a bit. I mean, when they got rid of me, it was almost a relief because then I could go work somewhere else.
Yeah. I've heard that actually. I've actually heard people say that it's a horrible freaking job. It is horrible.
The reason they got rid of me is I was too good at my job and I shared my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I am not kidding you. Because I knew as much as I did with all the experience that I had, when I talked about things and how I solved things when I was actually trying to help the other, the younger guys grasp the troubleshooting methods and what have you.
They were intimidated.
I might have been intimidating other people and making them feel less adept than I am. So I had to go.
Oops.
So yes, I have been fired for being too good of a tech.
Good, period.
That's the thing that really gets me about it and everything. Right now I'm going through and just kind of scrolling down on the
Xenu was the name of the guy I couldn't remember earlier. So yes, Xenu.net.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at this project Paradox that you guys were talking about. There's like this whole research, the paradox of project control, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff in the part.
Now, Venunu, have you guys ever heard of Venunu?
Not ringing a bell.
Venunu was Operation Samson. His name was Medichai Venunu, and he was also known as John Crossman, and an Israeli former nuclear technician and peace activist who cited his opposition to weapons of mass destruction. What happened was I don't know if you guys remember the story of Webb, not Webb, what was her name? She's the one that mysteriously died. She worked at a nuclear power plant back in the 70s, and she was mentioning to her boss that there was nuclear power rods that had come up missing, and she kept insisting on that the fact that they need to find out if those rods were stolen, and it got to the point where people started becoming worried, and on her way home, she was run off the road and killed. Well, a lot of people believe that that was involved with a nuclear deal that was taking place with the United States and Israel. And what would happen is they would ship these nuclear rods over to Israel, and Israel had their top secret nuclear plan going on, and it was called Operation Samson. Now, their nuclear program isn't set up like ours or any of the other ones. Like, they don't have missiles sticking out or down in silos. They've got them built underground, and it's called the dead switch. So if like there's going to be an invasion and Israel knows that they're going to lose, they're just going to hit a button and destroy their own freaking country. All right. For decades, Israel denied ever happened this stuff until Vanunu came out with it and gave the information to a news media in England. In the process of him being in England, freaking Israel was debating on if they wanted to take him back to Israel or kill him. And they finally decided that they were going to take him back. So they arrested him in France, transported him back to Israel, and he's been a prisoner there ever since.
And when did this happen?
This happened back in the 70s, I believe. Okay, I'll click on Wikipedia just for that. But I'm doing it in protest, Daniel.
It's in the name of research. It's in the name of
Like I tried Info Galactic.
Nuclear arsenal.
It just got stale.
Yeah. But it happened, the British press in 1986. Yeah, and it was the Israeli nuclear weapons program. He gave the information to the British press in 1986. He was lured to Italy by the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad. Now, Mossad is another group that would be a good discussion too, because they're some dirty freaking people, man. Where he was drugged and abducted because they had a beautiful woman who pretended that she liked him, you know, and seduced him into leaving England and going to Italy, where they were able to drug him in his drink and then take him without problems. But that was an interesting story that I got caught up into when it comes to all this stuff and energy and nuclear and all that. But I thought that would be interesting in sharing. And I did show Operation Clambake.
Yep.
So we've been doing this now for an hour and 37 minutes. You guys wanna say some last words and then we'll end it?
It works for me. It seems like we've had a pretty good wandering discussion here. That
I love it.
Discussion works about like my brain does, point to point to point. So
I think we did all right. Plus, like I said, there hasn't been much covered over Jack Parsons. You know what I mean? And
why do we keep going astray from that subject? The same thing yesterday. See, something's there. You gotta understand energy and.
This stuff is probably connected to him in some way.
That's what it is, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you don't hear much about him, and like what you do hear about him is involved in a lot of these programs. I mean, he was a rocket scientist. Think about this, okay? And everybody now, they're used to that shit, but like. He was a rocket scientist when being a rocket scientist wasn't freaking smart. People
wasn't even thought of, wasn't even a consideration, right?
He was that crazy guy out in the field that was freaking setting off freaking fireworks and shit. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I mean, that's the time set that we're thinking of there. You know, people weren't going to the moon yet. People weren't freaking going up to the satellite or space stations and stuff. You know, so that's that. That's the thing, man. Um, I think a lot of that actually is most likely where the start of this was in JPL. I mean, that's that's a serious freaking corporation, and you're talking about people disappearing. All right, people disappear. Trust me, and there's a good chance JBL has something to do with it. There's also the donut in England. I don't know if you guys heard of the donut.
Yeah, I just recently heard of it, but I'm not fluid in it.
You heard of the donut, Dave?
This, I was about to say,
No.
they talk about it with the crown.
Uh, the donut is basically a building shaped like a donut in London, and they have since, I don't know when it started, but at least in the 70s or 80s, they've been listening in on every conversation that people in England have had on the telephones. It moved from the telephones to the internet. And now they're freaking spying on people on the computers and stuff. But it's called the donut.
Okay. I know that that's done here. There's one right down the street from where I'm at right now. Do you remember the old telephone buildings? You had to have all the wire frames. I know what the frames look like. We actually had some for Davis when I was at the Space Center. But you had these huge relay centers with all the wires going everywhere to switch telephone conversations. You had to have your switch buildings. Well, we don't need that anymore. We Even if you've got two landlines, when one calls the other, it gets converted to digital somewhere, and it's all done over network switches and the internet and what have you, even if you think you're using a landline. We have all these telecom buildings all over the United States that are still standing. They're still secure. You still see vehicles at them all the time. Most of them really don't have any windows. That's where the spooks hang out. Those things are full of FBI. They're still owned by AT&T. They're still owned by whoever. But instead of running a bunch of network phone switching equipment that we don't need anymore, that's where we're monitored from. These old phone buildings that are theoretically next to useless now are just full of spooks.
Yep.
And you drive by one, you see a normal looking guy go in, chances are he's at NSA.
Now, the donut is the nickname given due to its resemblance to a donut to the headquarters of the Government Communication Headquarters, a British cryptography and intelligence agency. It is located on a 71 hectares, 176 acres site in Ben Hill in the suburbs of Cheltenham, Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire in southwest England. So that's where it is. And I brought up the picture too, and I made
Yeah, I think I have seen this before now that I'm looking at it.
yeah. Oh, you want me to pop it back up?
No, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
No, I think I have seen pictures of this building before, but I just kind of kept going. I thought it was a sports stadium because I've
Yeah.
seen it in passing.
So
Now that I look at it, it's obviously not a sports stadium.
that's why I tell English people they need to just shut their mouth, because like they freaking make it out like we're the freaking ones spying on everybody's intelligence or on their conversations, and like they're the ones who started it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Queen Elizabeth, or not Queen Elizabeth, but what's her name? The one that was during Ronald Reagan's era. She didn't want to
Oh,
get
that
on.
was Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth didn't want to get on board with oh, Margaret Thatcher too. Neither one of them wanted to get on board with Ronald Reagan on the space program, the Star Wars program,
Right.
because the United States, didn't want to freaking get involved with their freaking intelligence program, which consisted of that facility. All right. So Ronald Reagan had to freaking actually negotiate with them so that they could get on board and they could work together, which meant that the freaking Star Wars program was like completely downsized. You know what I'm saying? Like what he wanted to do and what was actually done didn't match up, and
Right.
it was because of that bullshit. So that's one another thing that's a pretty good thing to talk about.
I remember Star Wars being talked about extensively when I was a kid, but I wasn't until I was older that I actually figured out what the hell they were really talking about.
Yeah.
You know, you hear all the news when you're a kid and you don't really know what's going on. But
Yeah. Well, I know it was a
well,
lot worse back then though. Like now they don't even talk about it. I remember when I was a kid, I was always wondering why freaking all that bombing was going on in freaking Israel and over there, and it was always on the news. You know what I mean? Now, like they're barely even talking about it. Like it's not going on.
the more you learn about what's really going on, the more you just kind of pull back and don't know what to think of this earth anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think we had better end it. We're on an hour and 46 minutes, and
Yeah, it's time for me to go home.
all right. I'm glad you guys are here, and we had another good conversation. I'm really glad you guys were here,
Yeah,
and
it was really good. I appreciate the information. I have a lot of stuff to do now, but definitely appreciate the information.
and
All right. I'll catch y'all some other time. Thanks.
Tomorrow is
y-
the round table, so you should come. Yeah, that was a really good round table last Friday.
yeah,
Really good turnout. And you can talk about like mines and what you like to do with mines, how you would like to monetize. That was some big topics. And those some of the big dogs they come. I don't like to call people dogs, but you know it is what it is. But they do show up sometimes, so that'll be good, especially if we could get a turnout like that.
Yeah,
And
I won't be turning up tomorrow.
you said you're turning up. Where
I
you?
won't be turning up tomorrow.
Oh, I thought you said you're turning up. I was gonna say, hold on, where are you going? Are you
I'm going to go
partying
get my
today?
boys tomorrow, so I won't be around for that.
you
Oh,
have a
okay.
good weekend with them, and I hope you enjoy yourself. And
Yeah, yeah, I have
I'll
a
see you
good.
guys later, man.
I'll see you tomorrow. All right, then, y'all. See you. Good night. Be safe.
Bye bye. That was good.